Hey there, and welcome to the Event Crushed podcast. Each week, we'll be chatting about all things wedding industry, entrepreneurship, and how to crush it in life and business. I'm so glad you're here. Now, let's dive into this week's episode. Hey friends, welcome back to the Event Crushed podcast. This is your host, Becky. And thanks so much for joining me today. I am really excited for this episode because we are winding down on wedding season here in the Pacific Northwest. So depending on where you're located, you might still be in the midst of busy wedding season, which I would say absolutely still listen to this episode and just kind of save it for later and make a mental reminder of what you can be doing when things do slow down for you a bit. But where we are, it's almost October. Probably by the time I release this, it will be October. And the weather will be starting to change. Here in Oregon, we start to see more rain and colder temperatures. And so it's just not a super popular time to get married once we get into really mid to late October and then November, December. It's just chilly and rainy and wet, and it's not a super popular time for weddings here. But I know in other parts of the country and the world, it absolutely is. So wherever you are at in wedding season, I just think this is going to be a great reminder for all of us that being in the wedding industry really does have a toll on so many aspects of our lives, including physically on our bodies and mentally and emotionally, and the things that we deal with our clients on wedding days and just in our own personal lives, and how having to still show up for someone's wedding day, regardless of what you have going on in your life, that on its own can really take a toll. And I've heard so many stories and I've just seen so many things. And I eventually want to do a full episode about kind of this unique situation that we find ourselves in as wedding pros, where we might still have to show up and shoot somebody's wedding or coordinate somebody's wedding or do the flowers for somebody's wedding when we're going through a really, really difficult time. And it's different than I think in other industries, just because we're so forward facing, client facing, that we have to be able to compartmentalize and put a smile on and act like everything's fine. Whereas in another job that's more behind the scenes or just different situations, you'd be able to still do your job, but not have to just act like everything is fine. And I think that's really difficult. And I think that puts us in a really unique situation. So anyways, I want to do an entire future episode about that. We'll touch on that a little bit today. But that episode, we will plan that for the future. And before we jump into the episode, I want to mention just right off the bat, because this is so relevant to today's topic. If you are a wedding pro in Oregon, I know that a lot of my listeners are local to Oregon. We are hosting a party for wedding pros that is going to be on October 16th. So coming up very soon. Tickets are still available and on sale, but they are getting pretty close to being gone. And so I just really want to encourage you, if you are available that evening, to consider coming, to bring a friend, to invite another industry pro, and just show up. It is going to be such a blast. We're having dinner, we're having a taco bar, we're having a bar with margaritas and beer and wine. We are having a watercolor artist, Danison with Bow Tie and Brush, who you may remember from a previous episode, which I will link in the show notes. He will be there doing custom watercolor portraits live at the event for attendees, and we'll have temporary tattoos. We're going to have amazing door prizes. Erin with Events by Erin has been doing an amazing job of securing so many incredible door prizes. So there is a good chance you're going to walk away with something awesome. DJ Drake will be DJing the event and getting the dance floor going. And we also have live music for the cocktail hour. So, this is just an event that you do not want to miss. And the whole purpose of this is to celebrate what we do as wedding pros, to come together after a busy wedding season and just like enjoy each other's company and relax a little bit and let off some steam and remind ourselves like why we do what we do. I think it's going to be a really impactful evening. And it really, the purpose is to just have fun and to finally, like after celebrating all of our couples throughout the year and the season, to get to celebrate ourselves and what we do. Because sometimes the industry can be a bit thankless. And sometimes we start feeling like, oh, does this work really matter? Am I appreciated? And this is just a place where you can come and know that you are so appreciated. So I will include the ticket link in the show notes so that you can go and grab a ticket or two or three or four. And the other fun thing to know is that we are dressing in white for this party because obviously as wedding pros, we can't wear white to our work. So and we have so many amazing vendors on board that are helping to make this party happen. So I really hope to see you there. And if you can't make it, but if you are local to Oregon, my organization, Engaging Eugene, we host monthly networking events for wedding and event pros, and we break during the busy summer wedding season. So we haven't met up since May, but we'll kick off in October with this party. And then every month after that through May, we'll be meeting once a month at different venues around Eugene, Springfield. We also meet sometimes in Corvallis, in Monroe, I would say within like an hour of Eugene typically. So we'd love to see you at any of those events. And just, I'll link Engaging Eugene in the show notes where you can find us on Facebook and Instagram to hear about upcoming events and just kind of stay plugged in with all of that. Okay, so now that that is out of the way, we can dive in. I think that oftentimes we have a tendency as wedding pros to have this big like laundry list of things that we want to get done during the off season. I know I do. Right now, I have all these things in my Asana that I've kind of just been putting off. And I just kept telling myself, okay, like once I'm out of wedding season, then I can focus on all those things, which I think is fine and great. However, I just want to caution you from, I guess, just like jumping into those things right after wedding season. Like, okay, I got through all my weddings. Now I can update my website. Now I can redo my contract. Now I can redo my proposals. Now I can redo my copy on my sales page. Like all the different things that we tell ourselves we need to get done, but it's so hard to find the time during wedding season. It's like suddenly we have the time, but that doesn't mean we should jump right into those things. So that's just something I want to mention because I think it can be really easy to just like jump right in. But because of the emotional and physical toll that many of us carry through wedding season, it is really, really important to take some time to rest and recharge. And you probably know that. I mean, I imagine we all like know that we should do that, but are we all doing that? I'm not sure. I know that for me, like it's easy to just jump back into the work. So, a couple things I wanted to share about the emotional toll that can come from being a part of the wedding industry and kind of like different ways this can impact us. So, one way could be just having a really difficult client or working with a parent of a client who's very difficult and just made our job miserable. I just in speaking with so many different wedding planners and pros, like just this summer, I've heard so many, honestly, horror stories from other planners about moms of the bride or moms of the groom or the couple themselves who just were so harsh and not grateful and critical, just all these things that leave me feeling flabbergasted. Like how do they think it's okay to treat somebody that way that they have hired for their wedding day? And I just, hearing these stories, I can't even imagine the emotional toll. And I have had situations like that in my past too. And it can be beyond draining to feel like you are pouring your heart and your soul into the work that you do because you're so passionate about it and you love it so much and you love your clients so much and you want them to have the best day of their lives. But somehow there is a disconnect and, a client or even another vendor isn't treating you the way that you should be treated. And it's just so sad. And so if you've had an experience like that this summer, well, you're definitely not alone. So know that, first of all, you are absolutely not alone in that. But it's just a heavy weight to bear. And I was thinking back to 2017 when I had a really bad experience with a mother of a bride that just left me in tears. I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but it was single-handedly the worst experience I've ever had with clients. And it wasn't even the clients, it was the mother of the bride. And it was so mentally draining. I mean, I just remember reading her emails, sobbing. She was asking for a refund and I had never had to do that before, and just feeling like a failure and wondering where I went wrong and what did I do wrong and how did we get here, because it started off so good and so positive and I connected with this mom really well because we actually had a lot in common, and just wondering like how did we get here? So I can relate. I've been in a really tough situation like that and it is just mentally draining. That's one type of emotional toll that we might experience as wedding pros. Another one would be just going through things in your own personal life that we are then having to put a smile on our faces and go do our jobs and act like everything is fine. That's what I mentioned at the top of the show. So I have examples for this in my own life. I honestly can't remember if I have shared this on the podcast before, now being 72 episodes in. I think I've like lost track of some of the things I've said. So if this is repeated, I apologize. I guess I should do a little bit of a trigger warning because I'm going to mention miscarriage. I'm not going to go into detail or anything, but my experience was 4 years ago in 2021. I had a miscarriage. So I didn't know that I had miscarried, but went to the doctor at 12 weeks and for a normal, like routine checkup to hear the heartbeat and everything. And they couldn't find the heartbeat. And so, very traumatic experience. But I had a wedding days later. And so, I had to go into the hospital and get a DNC and have that procedure done. And then 2 days later was the wedding. And I did end up telling my couple about what had happened because I just thought it would be for the best. But I guess the couple didn't tell the bride's mom. And so the day of the wedding, she came up to me and gave me a giant hug, congratulating me on my pregnancy. And it was so hard not to just lose it in that moment. It was one of the worst feelings I've ever had in my life. I mean, obviously going through all of that was terrible, but then to be reminded in such a way that, and I couldn't tell her. I just didn't say anything. I was just silent and then I walked away and just like was trying to fight back tears because I'm working and I was like in the middle of setting up their ceremony. So that is one example of how we might be going through really difficult things while we're having to be a part of this amazing day for our couples, and being able again to compartmentalize somehow and like push those thoughts and feelings off to the side so that we can still provide our couples with an amazing service. I think another example would be if, a wedding pro is going through a divorce and then having to show up. I know many people have had to go through this, and I feel like that's especially difficult too because you're showing up on somebody's wedding day, and that alone is going to be a reminder of the fact that your marriage is ending or has ended. And it's just so difficult. So I think we just need to recognize that, like, again, this is a very unique industry and we still have to show up even if we're going through hard things. Obviously, there are situations with health and sickness and like a true, like an injury, like a true inability to show up on someone's wedding day. But I think there is this expectation, like, no matter what we're going through emotionally, if we can physically show up, then we are supposed to. I know people, I've heard stories. There was actually, I think there was a thread about this a while ago. I should find that. It was so good because it was just somebody brought this up, like this idea. And then Wedding Pro after Wedding Pro were sharing all these really hard things that they had to go through to still show up because they had been hired to do the job. And a lot of people were saying that they had experienced a death in the family and still had to show up and do the wedding. And that's, again, it's so difficult. So this all just ties into that emotional toll that we might be dealing with during wedding season. There was one other thing I wanted to add that's very recent for me, and so that's why it's fresh on my mind, that has to do with this emotional toll. So I have really prided myself on how working from home and running my wedding planning business for the last 13 years, like, I have been able to raise my girls, watch them grow up, see every milestone, like see their first steps, be a part of their lives in such a huge way. And I've never had to hire childcare or anything like that. I have felt very proud that I have never had to miss out on these big moments. I'm sure there's things that I've missed over the years, but as a whole, like the big moments, the really meaningful things for my kids, like I have been there for them. When my kids, well, when they were in school, before we started homeschooling, I could pick them up and drop them off every day. I could, if my daughter forgot her lunch at home, I could bring it to her. When they were doing gymnastics or other activities, I could always take them and pick them up from those activities and sit there and watch them and be a part of that. And this past weekend, having a wedding on Saturday, it was the first time where I really had to miss something, a big moment for my daughter, and it sucked. Like, I was really sad about it, and I was driving to the wedding just like fighting back tears because I knew I was missing this really important moment for my daughter, and it just sucked. And I was like, I love what I do. I've always loved what I do. There's a reason I'm still doing it 13 years later. But like, as they're getting older and they're doing more things, and my daughter has had this really amazing opportunity to get involved in mounted shooting. And if you don't know what that is, that's okay. You can Google it or look it up. But she just had her first mounted shooting competition where she got to compete on Saturday, because there's been two others this summer where she did the flags. She like ran the flags in the beginning. And I wasn't able to go to either of those either because they all happened to be on Saturdays that I had weddings. But this one, which I was really bummed to miss those, but this was her first like actual competition. And not being there just super bummed me out. And I know that she understands that her dad was there and her sister was there and her grandma was there and she had a ton of support. But just something about having to miss that because of my work, it really affected me. And I'm just hoping to not have to do a lot more of that. But that was like my kind of emotional burden that I was feeling this weekend, was like, oh, my job has never taken me away from those big moments. And this time it did. And I was just, yeah, kind of having a hard time with that. So also, I apologize for my voice. I thought it wasn't that noticeable when I first started talking, but as I'm talking more, I think it's getting worse and worse. But I do have a cold right now. I probably should have mentioned that at the beginning, but it just seems like it's getting scratchier and deeper as we go. So I apologize. Let's try to get going and wrap this up. So the first part is the emotional toll, which we just discussed, that we all deal with in some capacity. It's going to look different for everybody, right? The second toll that we experience from long wedding days is the physical toll. I mean, think about it. We are on our feet. So many of us work for 8, 10, 12, 16 hours on a wedding day, especially us planners and coordinators. Like we're usually the first one there, last one out. A lot of times that's 12, 14, 16 hours. But then, the photographers, maybe they're not there as long, and videographers, they are hauling this really heavy equipment all over the place. That will take a toll on our bodies, constantly moving, having to move. I mean, as planners, coordinators, venue managers, if you work at a venue, a lot of those people, like we're moving tables, we're moving heavy tables, we're setting up chairs, we're moving chairs, we are lifting heavy florals and arrangements. The other thing too that wedding pros might deal with, especially during busy wedding season, is a lack of sleep. I know that on wedding days, I have to get up really early to just kind of like prep everything, make sure everything's printed, review details, pack my car, all of that. And then I'm a lot of times getting home at 11 o'clock, midnight, and then having to wake up the next morning for church. And so we're not getting a ton of sleep. And for me personally, right now, like with the overlap between homeschool and wedding season, that is challenging because I have to wake up at 4:30 in the morning so that I can work before we start school at 8. That's like my primary work time. And then on top of that, after school, I'm working and preparing for upcoming weddings and having, meetings and podcast interviews. And it will get better soon because I will no longer have weddings after next weekend. I just have one more to round out the season. So it will get better soon, but just trying to balance that. And I know obviously not everybody is homeschooling their kids and wrapping up wedding season, but whatever it is that you have going on in your life, it's regardless, you have a lot to balance, whether you have kids or not. You might have another job on top of your wedding business. You might have a full-time or part-time job that you are balancing on top of this, or you might have a busy family or whatever it is that you have going on. We are all just balancing a lot. And so the point is, it can lead to a lack of sleep. So there's a good chance you haven't been getting enough sleep. And we want to make sure that as we wind down on wedding season, that you can get back into a good rhythm of sleep and getting enough sleep per night. Also, I wanted to share this too, just in this section of the physical toll. I've seen so many stories and examples of this too, but I just saw a girl that is in WPI with me with Candace Coppola. She posted a reel about photographing a wedding with a broken leg. And it was like, this poor girl, she had a scooter and she was kind of like hobbling down this Catholic church aisle to go, capture their wedding. And I was just, oh my goodness, the things that we do for our couples is just incredible. And I know she had a second shooter and an assistant and everything. She was totally able to make it happen for them. And just how we're able to push through like physical pain, emotional pain, and just everything going on in our lives to push through to make magic for someone else. I just think it's really remarkable what we do. And I have to call that out and just remind us all like how incredible that is and how incredible we are. But our bodies need rest and care to be able to recover from a busy wedding season and to be able to sustain us to prepare for the next busy wedding season, the next thing that's going on. So that's really where I want to get into talking about practical ways to re-energize after a busy wedding season. So if you have made it through wedding season, congratulations. It's such a wonderful feeling to like make it through all of your weddings and all of your happy couples and to just, and even if someone wasn't happy, like you made it through, you did it. And if you're still in wedding season, like hang in there. You got this. The end is coming. And I just want you to take some time to think about what would I'm going to give you some ideas and think about what would make the most sense for you. And can you find time to plug some things into your schedule to make it happen? Because if you don't do that, they're not going to happen. And you're just going to dive right back in to the work. And you are then going to experience burnout. That's how burnout happens, is if we go, 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 and we don't give ourselves a break and we think we just need to push harder, push through, keep going. That's literally the recipe for burnout. And I don't want that for you. I don't want that for me. I don't want that for anybody. So it's so important. Like, this isn't just fluffy, like, oh yeah, just like take a break and you'll be fine. Like, this is actually a very important part of the step of being a successful business owner, is to know how to rest and recover. I shared this in my green flags for wedding pros episode, which I think was maybe episode 69. I'll have to find that and link that too. But in that episode, I talked about like one of the green flags is wedding pros not being in burnout mode. Like, it's very attractive and appealing to work with a wedding pro who isn't stressed out and constantly talking about how busy they are and how they're like trying to stay on top of their inbox and how they're trying to like balance everything. Like, that leads to burnout. And so we don't want to be living in that mode of constant go, 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 constant trying to play catch up. And if you're in that place, sometimes that's okay. We all get in that place. I have been in that place recently. But now that my season's coming to an end, it is the time for me to take some time to rest and recharge. So I hope that just explains like why this is actually essential. I think a lot of people could see the title of this episode and be like, I don't need that. I don't need to rest. Like, it's okay. But I hope that you do take the time to listen. I mean, obviously, if you're hearing this right now, then you did. So good job, you. But let's keep going. So, practical ways to re-energize after a busy wedding season. Obviously, just resting and recovering. Hello, this is just so simple, but getting extra sleep, going to bed a little earlier, waking up a little later, having a slow morning when you can, just like true downtime, reading a book. I've been dreaming of this all summer. I cannot wait to just have the time and I'm not saying I didn't have this time at all over the summer, but just much less of it. Like, I want to just sit on my couch. We have this new couch. It's so comfy. And all I want to do is just sit there with my cup of coffee and read my book. That sounds like a dream. So I'm going to be doing a lot of that in my off season. Like, that's personally how I'm going to be spending a lot of time. So what is that for you? Like, what do you just envision? Like, what makes you happy when you think about resting? Is it just like playing with your kids and having time with them? Is it having like a just family meal all together? Is it going to the spa and getting a massage or a pedicure? I also have that on my list. I have been very blessed to have a couple of gift cards currently that I am sitting on and waiting to use in the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to be getting a massage. I'm going to be getting a facial. I am so freaking excited. I'm going to be getting a pedicure at some point too. And for me, that's a big way that I like to just rejuvenate and take some time to just like have to myself. And, doing that and then grabbing an iced coffee and maybe doing a little shopping. I mean, that sounds pretty fantastic to me. So again, just thinking through like what is it for you? Another thing that I highly recommend if you're able to would be like just doing a staycation or even a little getaway, whether that is just on your own or with your partner or with your family as a whole, like escaping to the coast and just having a night or two over there to just like play on the beach and go out to eat and get away. I think that is like, now is such great timing for that. If you're just wrapping up wedding season and you can go do like a little getaway or just in your own town, have a staycation at a local hotel and just like forget about work for a couple of days and truly focus on just relaxing and filling your cup. Because really, all of this is about filling your cup back up so that you can be the best version of yourself for not just for your couples and your clients, but for your family, for your loved ones. Like we want to be able to give the best to the people who love us and who we love. And sometimes going through a really busy, hard wedding season can like put us on edge and make us not the nicest people. And so this is just all about bringing us back to being that best version of ourselves. So that's why I think, getting away and just kind of having a reset could be really, really valuable. All right. So we've talked about just general rest and recovery, staycation. What about something like a creative reset, like getting back to a hobby that you love? Maybe you love gardening, reading. I mentioned that's a big hobby of mine. Maybe you love cooking. I'm personally wanting to get more into cooking, crafting projects that you love. Maybe it's interior design or decorating your house. Whatever kind of hobby that you can get back to in the off season is so beneficial as well. So, whatever that is for you, if there's a new hobby that you can start, that's amazing. I would just have been getting into paddleboarding. Obviously, that's not going to be conducive to the fall and winter, but I did get to do a little bit of that this summer. And whatever hobbies that you might want to try, now is a great time to find something that can just kind of spark your creativity, which I think is really good for us as wedding pros, especially being in a creative industry. Like it's so important to just put ourselves outside of that sometimes and be creative in different ways. Maybe it's art, maybe it's painting. There's so many different ways to be creative. I love it. The next one is physical care. So, whatever that looks like for you in terms of like working out or walking, stretching, yoga, movement, whatever that looks like for you, I think it's super important to stay or either to get back into that or just stay on top of that during the off season. It's so helpful for feeling revitalized, getting off our butts and like walking around. Me and Andrew have been really trying to get out and walk together because one, it is good for us and we get our steps in. And two, we bring our dog and then we just talk and have just time together as a couple, which for someone who's been married for over 16 years, like, and with very active kids, like sometimes it's hard to find the time in your day and your week to just like be with your partner. And so that's been super good and healthy for us. Just an idea for anyone else who wants like an easy way to kind of work on staying fit and also build your relationships up too. And then lastly, I want to just remind you again not to just dive right into the big projects that you've been putting off all wedding season. I currently have one website. I need to like revamp a lot of the copy and images. I have another website I'm trying to build and launch. And I want to just like be able to dive into those things. But I know I need a minute. I need a minute before I jump into all of that. And so I'm resisting the urge to make all of it happen right now. And I'm going to be taking some time. And I hope that you will too. All right. So, in wrapping up, I want to add one thing to tie back to the party that I mentioned. I don't think I even said the name of the party. It's called Unveiled, a little play on words for us in the wedding industry. Unveiled, a night out for wedding pros. And that's really what it is. It's a night out for wedding pros. And what I want to say is that self-care and rejuvenating, resting, it doesn't always have to be solo. Community can be very restorative too. And so finding that community, whether you already have it and you're just reconnecting with those people or coming to something like Unveiled and meeting a bunch of amazing people in the wedding industry could be so amazing as a form of self-care. So I really hope that you will consider it, especially because you can be around other people who have like gone through what you've gone through this season and people who understand what you've been through. I've talked about this so much, but just having those people in your corner in your life who you can go to and share the struggles with and know that you're not alone, because I will guarantee you there will be so many people in that room who will say, I have been through a very similar situation and it was terrible. Or, it's not all about just the negative. you know, commiserating, I guess, also sharing in the good things. And oh my gosh, I've also had that happen, or I've worked with this vendor, or I've worked at that venue, and sharing in just the common bonds and connections that bring us together is just, it's so special. There's just nothing like it. And so if you want to come and hang out with a bunch of amazing wedding pros, have tacos and margaritas, get your amazing watercolor portrait from Danison, get down on the dance floor, photo booth. I mean, there's just so much fun stuff. It's from 6 to 10 p.m. on October 16th at the Gardens at Riverside in Corvallis. I also realized I never said the location. Kind of an important detail. Again, all of this will be in the show notes, including the link to get your tickets. I hope you'll consider joining us, and just thank you for tuning in. This, of course, as it usually does, ended up being a way longer episode than I had anticipated. But if you're still here, I really appreciate it. Thanks for hanging with me. Your job for the week is to think through the ideas that we discussed today and come up with some that could work for you, whether it's a staycation or just going on a daily walk or going to the spa and getting a massage. Oh my gosh, doesn't it just all sound amazing? Maybe it's finding a new hobby that you can enjoy or an activity that you can do together as a family. There are so many possibilities and options. And I just want to remind you too that you're human first, wedding pro second. And you truly deserve to be able to recharge and rest and just have this time before you dive into all the things that we all want to get done during the off season. It's been so fun chatting with you. If you're in Oregon, I hope to see you on the 16th. Otherwise, maybe you're going to be at Wedding MBA in November. I'll be there. Hope to see you there. If not in October. All right, friends, we will catch you back here next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Event Crushed podcast. I hope you found value in this episode, and if you did, please consider sharing it with a wedding industry friend. We also hope you'll consider leaving a rating or review for the show to help other listeners find it. This podcast is edited and produced by Ace Sound Design. If you're looking to elevate your audio experience, their info can be found in the show description. As always, thank you for listening, and please connect with us on Instagram if you haven't already. Now get out there and crush it.